Mr. Chairman, thank you for having this hearing. You said you'd do it, and you're doing it. I appreciate it very much. This is an urgent and serious issue. I think what we're seeing is what happens when the Biden administration is outsourcing its immigration policy to criminal cartels who are getting richer by the minute, smuggling people and drugs into the United States. And of course, the casualties associated with that, the grieving parents losing their children to fentanyl poisoning are well documented. Mr. Salazar, in your testimony, you talked about Central America and the so-called root causes strategy. It sounds to me like the administration is engaged in a nation-building process to try to address immigration and doing nothing at all about the pull factors which lay out the welcome mat for people all around the world. Let me just ask you, did you know that in 2022 that people from 174 different countries came to our border and were released into the interior of the United States, 174 countries? Did you know that?
Sorry, no, sir, I did not.
And did you know so far in 2023, people from 143 countries have come to our border and been released by the Biden administration into the interior of the United States? Did you know that number?
No, sir, I did not.
Well, I agree with Senator Graham. When you try to solve a problem, the first thing you need to do is understand what the problem is. And what has happened as a result of the expectation that if you make it to the border, that you're going to be able to make it into the interior of the United States and stay here for the rest of your natural life is a huge magnet. And who wouldn't want to come to the United States, where the standard of living and the prospects for your life are far better than anywhere else in the world? It's a natural magnet. But the Biden administration has created the distinct impression that you can stay. And of course, the cartels who control smuggling and control drugs continue to get rich, so what's not to love from their perspective? But the casualties associated with this are real. Let me just ask our witness from HHS and Health and Office of Refugee Relocation. My figures show that 300,000 unaccompanied children have been placed with sponsors during the Biden administration. Is that your understanding, roughly 300,000?
Thank you, Senator. That sounds accurate. I'd have to get back to you on exact figures.
And you've read the, as you indicated, it's the process, and these children haven't even necessarily claimed asylum, but under the current practice, you identify a sponsor, and then that child is placed with a sponsor, and I think there's a chart or a priority list depending on whether there's a family relationship, but there doesn't actually have to be. Isn't it a fact that there's no mandatory FBI criminal background check system on those sponsors? There's no requirement that, and no practice by which you do that in every case, correct?
Thank you, Senator. Every sponsor goes through a sex offender registry check and a
I didn't ask about that. I asked about an FBI criminal background check. There's no...
Certain sponsors have an FBI background check.
But not all of them.
That is correct.
Yeah. The New York Times, as you know, documented that in 85,000 cases, when a call was made 30 days after the child was placed with a sponsor, there was no answer. Are you familiar with that story?
Yes, I am.
And the truth is that the Biden administration doesn't know what has happened to those 85,000 children, or to the larger point, to the 300,000 children who've been placed with sponsors, because the administration does not deem that as their responsibility. Is that correct?
Senator, as I mentioned, while our custodial authority
I ask you, is that correct?
Our care for the children does not. We are expanding post-release
Well,
services.
I'm asking about the 300,000, and so there is no follow-up. Can I just ask as a final question, the New York Times documented that Susan Rice, the domestic policy advisor for the Biden administration, and that Secretary Becerra, who's head of the Health and Human Services, both were made aware of these 85,000 attempts to contact sponsors with no avail, and did nothing in response. Do you know if in fact the President of the United States was informed about these facts?
Senator, I'd like to set the record straight that although a call was not picked up,
Do you know if the President of the United States was made aware of the report in the New York Times about 85,000 unanswered wellness checks 30 days after the child was placed with a sponsor? Did the President of the United States know that?
We are in regular communication. I can't speak to the specifics, but I want to reiterate the fact that a telephone was not picked up, a telephone call was not picked up, does not mean that that child did not have post-release services, did not have legal services.
But you don't know because you don't follow up after that. You can't tell us whether the child's being sex trafficked into forced labor, whether they're going to school, whether they're getting health care. You can't tell us whether they're being neglected or otherwise abused. You can't tell us, and the fact of the matter is, if you cared to find out, then you could do something about it. But it's obvious to me that the Biden administration simply does not care. My time's up.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of you for being here. Ms. Dunn Marcos, I'd like to start with you.